And now it's time for Guerilla or Roundup. They'll let you know what happened overnight when things transpire whilst you sleep. Right there in the loop you keep.
Right, hello. We're back here at the Basin Reserve in Wellington ahead of the second test, England v New Zealand, starting tomorrow. I'm joined by one of the many faces of freelance, Cam Ponsonby. Cam, thanks for coming on. And just what were your thoughts on the first test?
Yeah, weird test match. Really weird test match because on paper you go, England win an away match, amazing. They haven't won a series here in 2008, what an achievement. But New Zealand just dropped everything. And so it's hard to kind of gauge where England really fell. I think the good thing for England is while you could caveat Brooks 170 and go, he's got dropped 5 times along the way, like Bryden Cast and Jacob Bethel were 2 kind of unqualified successes. Bethel looked the part in the first innings. Even if he only got 10, I'm worried we're slightly over hyping that, myself included. And in the second innings, like, he just looked amazing. And Bryden Cast, 10 wickets, brilliant.
Yeah, well, England must see something in Bethel because they've just handed him a 2-year contract. Do you think that's a little bit too early? He's only played 1 match.
No, I think these contracts kind of almost exist to lock in who you think is going to be your best players, because it happened last year where like they didn't give one to like Jacks, for instance, and it was like, actually, if you think these guys are people that are your kind of second rung of players who you want to come into your first team and really progress, you want to have control over their schedule as much as possible. You don't want them to be flying around playing in a million different franchise competitions when you might be wanting to manage their workload. So I think they've upgraded Bethel's contract. He was on a development contract, and then that would have been worked out over the West Indies series. And then he did really well in the West Indies, and he started really well in Test cricket. So they've just gone like, we want as much control over this kid as possible.
Yeah, I mean, he's had a whirlwind of a past couple of weeks, but just as painful as it is, everything goes back to the 8-drop catches. And I was watching Glenn Phillips warm up yesterday. He dropped 3 dollies at point again. Tom Latham in the post-match in Christchurch said that they don't need to work on that catching. That's pretty outrageous. It's a windiest city in the world, I think. What do you think we can expect to see in the second test?
It's hard because players obviously, teams obviously work on their catching all the time. So I think I'm not surprised Latham goes like, nah, let's just keep doing what we're doing. It was an aberration, basically. It'd be bizarre if he'd gone like, yeah, we haven't actually been taking many catches recently. Like, we should probably try and pay attention to that. And someone like Glenn Phillips is like one of the best fielders in the world, and just basically it looks like at the moment just hit it to him. Yeah, then you're safe. If you hit it anywhere near him though, then you're in trouble.
He'll take a screamer, but he can't take a sitter.
Yeah, and that's just the tale of the last match. I don't know what to expect from this game. Like the Basin Reserve, you get. I'm going to try and remember this properly now. It looks it's absurdly green, but it often plays better, and that's what happened last year here in particular. And the way it tends to work is you kind of get in the second innings, the pitch dries out, and you get all these like scallops, they call it, where you see the indentations on the pitch. So it starts softer, and the pitch hardens up, and then you kind of get your movement second innings from the seam because the ball's hitting these divots. The test match here last time was one of the greatest test matches ever. Yeah. New Zealand winning by 1 run after England forced to follow on. And weirdly, if you look at it, it's like one of the worst losses ever. It's a catastrophic capitulation. How England have contrived to lose that test match is awful. But no one cared because it was so much fun. It's just so much fun.
Beauty of cricket. And just on that, what do you expect Spin to do this match? Obviously, New Zealand just called Santner up. He's expected to play tomorrow.
Yeah, will be interesting because Santner went so well over in India, but we're increasingly appreciating the difference between playing Test cricket here in Basin Reserve versus Mumbai. Yeah. He's back in the squad because he had been injured. I don't know. I mean, I think did he do press for New Zealand the day before yesterday?
Yeah.
Which sometimes suggests someone's playing, but it doesn't always. It is, in theory, a place which takes a little bit more spin. We know England have gone unchanged, and they've already they picked Bashir in the first test when New Zealand didn't go with a specialist spinner. I wouldn't be surprised either way if New Zealand went unchanged, or if they decide to bring in Santner for. I'm guessing it would be Nathan Smith as one of the how many seams they've got? O'Rourke, Southey, Smith, and I'm already forgetting Matt Henry. And I'd be a real shame if we didn't see Nathan Smith here, because he is a Wellington player.
Yeah,
He's been
exactly.
the domestic player of the season for last 2 years in a row, and he's in his own conditions. He's meant to be with the wind at his back. He's meant to be a very, very special bowler.
And logically, Southey would be the one you can drop. Can you drop him on your farewell tour? He's bowling 125. With this wind, he's going to slow down even more and doesn't offer much with the bat.
It's hard. I don't think they will. Just because he's such a legend around these parts. At the end of the Christchurch match, he was really taking a lap of honour.
Yeah.
I think he was for the last time at the Hagley Oval. Please get off for Tim Southey. And although there isn't, in theory, there's no room for sentimentality in elite sport, but we increasingly see it. Maybe we saw it before, we just kind of forgot about it. I think it's pretty brutal to drop him. I think the kind of New Zealand public, a lot of people will be coming here to watch Tim Southey for the last time, and rightly or wrongly, I think it means he'll play. They'll just let him get to the end. They can't qualify for the World Test Championship anymore, or they can, but miracles are required. And it's just take a lap.
Yeah,
have a good time and let everyone watch Southey one more time.
And Will Young, he's been a subject of debate. Obviously, he wasn't picked for the first test, player of the series in India, albeit different conditions. But his absence, that seemed to affect the New Zealand team, especially in the second innings.
Yeah.
Can he come back in? Who would it be for? I know Blundell is averaging 15 this year.
It's hard. I think that's one of the more likely changes. So Latham obviously won't get drop out because he's the skipper. But you kind of have two options there where you can go. You've actually got three options. You could drop. You can basically bring Young in for Conway, Blundell, or Phillips, and it would rejig the way you set up your team. I think going into the first test, it was more likely that they were potentially going to leave out Phillips and go we don't need the spinner, and Young's a better test match batter than Phillips. Then Phillips batted very well, and I think does balance the team very well. He gives. I know he's dropped these catches, but he's still able to offer in all three departments, and he is that player at seven, that style of player at seven that teams really like at the moment, or England in particular, where if he is going to be batting with the tail, he can launch the ball out of the ground. Conway's had a very lean time of it over the last 18 months, so you could just straight swap him, Conway, for Young and kind of go that way round, or Blundell, and then you give the gloves to Tom Latham, I'm guessing, but Latham just said the other day that Blundell's the best wicket-keeper in the world, so he doesn't want to swap that round. It's strange. It would be. New Zealand are quite conservative in their selection policies. They like to kind of keep consistency, and kind of it's almost an old school. It's the mantra we used to hear with England, where it's one game too many rather than one game too few. So I don't know if they'll make that change, but it feels, given how well he's gone recently, it would be wise to bring him in.
Well, I think it was Ian Smith that said that Stead has to be sacked if he doesn't drop Southey, let alone make some changes. Do you think that's a little bit too harsh after India?
I don't know.
Pretty harsh words.
I don't know where. I haven't seen those comments, but Ian Smith knows more about New Zealand cricket than I do.
Yeah.
But it'd be a hell of a thing to fire the Stead after winning 3-0 in India.
Yeah.
But that sounds fun. I'm on board.
Brutal, but has to be done potentially. In England, unchanged. Be surprised, in particular with Chris Woakes. Matty Potts just got a contract extension as well. He seems to be the future instead of Chris Woakes. What were your thoughts on their team?
I wasn't surprised England were unchanged, because when they win, they like to kind of just back people and go cool, sweet, that works. So they're keeping Bethel at 3, they're keeping Pope at 6 with the gloves. I think with Woakes in particular, it's weird because people often point to this thing that they let Anderson go because they don't see him having a future. They couldn't see him getting to Australia, and so where does Woakes come into that? But Woakes he's in very good shape. He's very fit. He could feasibly have a test career beyond the Ashes. He might not go to the Ashes, but he could have a test career beyond that. He has such a strong record at home, and given that he did have a very important intervention in the first test match where he got Williamson and Blundell out in back-to-back deliveries, I think England will want to back him in that respect, to be like, you've had a good test match away from home, keep going. Because it's going to be a monkey on his back, where it's my home and away record is so extreme. At home, his record is incredible, and then away from home, it is poor, basically. So I'm not surprised they kept him in. I wouldn't be surprised, because we have back-to-back test matches, if England secured the series here, if they made that change, because one of the things that England have a real luxury in at the moment is with Atkinson and Carson 9 and 10, you could very easily swap Wokes and Potts, have Potts at 10, you still have a bloke at number 10 who's got a first-class century. Like, it's a very deep batting lineup.
Yeah, that is something that New Zealand seem to be missing. And Zach Crawley, he seems to have slipped under the radar a little bit. I think it's 16 innings, averages 10, and has got 3 ducks against New Zealand. Obviously, he's not going to get dropped. But what's gone wrong for him?
It's so weird. It's such an extreme outlier.
Yeah.
Because he's batted them. I looked this up the other day. So I think it's India. He's batted the most against, maybe Australia, but it's the second most he's batted against any one nation in like 16, 17 innings. He averages 9.8 against New Zealand. It's so bizarre. But you're right in that Crawley is not the topic of concern at the moment, and no one really seems to worry about his spot. This whole kind of mantra of when he got picked years ago is that we think this guy would do well away in Australia. And so we're still building towards that series. So he has pretty much as much rope as he wants. He went really well in the Ashes at home previously. But the strange thing is, we do kind of need to see some runs from him soon, because I don't think he's got a Test 100 in his last like 18 or 22 matches going back to Australia. And because he went so well at home to Australia and at the beginning of the year in India, everyone went like, cool, Crawley's sorted, box ticked, don't have to worry about him. And he's not done very well since. Yeah. But where of all of England's concerns, that opening partnership in Duckett and Crawley, it's not there. They're very happy with that, and they're very happy with the tempo in which they set the game up for them.
And as frustrating as it is, everything seems to be preparation, warm-up matches for an Ashes. So we've got another.
Yeah.
Just everything's looking ahead a couple of years. But Jacob Bethell, you made this call early on in the first test. Pope doing well at 6. He's going to stay at 6 for the rest of the series. Bethell will stay at 3. Stokes said yesterday that Smith's going to come back into the side. So if Bethell scores some runs in at 3, can he push Pope out the team?
So Stokes saved himself is too strong a phrase, but he went, me and McCullum after the first test, we thought that team looks really good.
Yeah.
Like that setup was really deep. And you're going, bloody hell, like writing's on the wall for Pope here. You say he really likes to look at that team, the shape of it, the structure of the batting order. And then he said, well, when Smith comes back, we will see Pope back at 3. Basically, that was kind of, he said that pretty like cut and dry. But you kind of can say that, because you can either go back on it or things change. Like it's so far until that India series. You have two tests here, and then you have 6 months for someone to roll an ankle, and it just looks after itself. So there's no point in committing now, and it's easier to commit to the status quo and say, Jacob, you have to wait your turn. But I see no reason why Bethell couldn't be in a position in 6 months' time where he's forcing England's hand to say, I've done well in New Zealand, I should be batting 3. I think that's entirely feasible, and I think Ollie Pope would be cursing Jordan Cox breaking his thumb and forcing this switch around.
He was doing so well getting away with it. But subject of big debate yesterday was obviously both teams got 3 points in the World Test Championship for the slow over 8. Stokes wasn't happy at all. What were your thoughts on that? Because the game was finished in 3.5 days.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't think that's a good argument in terms of how the over 8 was slow, because mainly I think the point of the keeping the over 8 up is you're meant to be giving fans their value for money, and kind of in terms of 90 overs. I don't feel that strongly about that. I think if I paid for a ticket, and I see 83 overs of action rather than 90, I don't think I find value in those extra 42 balls. It's like the events of the day and the ebbs and flows. That's something that a lot of people disagree with. But I think it is the right area of focus of why it should be solved, because for a lot of people it does make a difference, and it does take the mickey if you're 10 overs short. So where I thought was relevant was when Stokes was saying, no, it doesn't get dark here till 10. It doesn't get dark in England till 10:30. If we've got the light, let's just keep playing. Just keep playing until we can get to 90 overs. We don't have to go off the pitch. And I think fundamentally that is the best case scenario where it's common sense and you just continue as is, whatever, fine. You can also start half an hour earlier when you're not in high summer if you really wanted to, where it becomes, but then it kind of does solve itself, because as he was saying, the irritation he has is it's the same rules for wherever you are in the world. So if you're in New Zealand, if you're in England, the overrate is slower because people bowl more seam. If you are in the subcontinent, the overrate is quicker because you have spin at both ends. So he's like, the rule, it can't be that you have to hit this number of overs wherever you are in the world, because we're bowling different types of things. For that same reason, I don't think it can just be a case of, the hard and fast rule is we'll just bowl until the light goes, because the light fade, like you're in the Caribbean and it's bright sunlight at 5:30 and it's pitch black at 6.
Yeah.
Like, so that wouldn't work as well there. You might need to start earlier in the Caribbean or start bowling fast or whatever. But yeah, I did laugh that they've been docked World Test Championship points, and they've already said like well, we don't care about that.
I think it was 19 out of 28 in the Ashes. Do you think some of the Aussies have been calling it a little bit disrespectful because England just disregard the World Test Championship clearly? Do you think that is a point of value, or?
Yeah, I think it just is a bit tone deaf at times, because England want to be part. They're saying they want to be helping revitalise this format and kind of spark a renewed love and interest around the world in Test cricket, and we're seeing that. Like, we're going to have a sold out. We had sold out Hagley Oval. We're going to have a sold out Basin Reserve. Like, Test cricket this year has been wonderfully exciting, as it just feels, although the World Test Championship is imperfect, it feels a bit silly to disregard it when it's like the one thing that like everyone's competing for together. Where I do understand what Stokes is saying is he's like, well, we want to win every game anyway, and if we win our games, then we qualify. So I don't really need to. It's not like you can plot your route to victory at the World Test Championship. Yeah. It's just like, let's just win. Like, we win and then we'll get there.
A little bit arrogant.
But it would be, I think, it would be not. I mean, it would be nice if England were like, yeah, we don't really get it, but we want to win it.
Yeah.
Like Nathan Lyon being like, this is my World Cup final, and this is my, like, I don't play white ball cricket.
Yeah.
This is the competition I really want to kind of do well and succeed in. And I think we find it'd be cool. Like, with the England hosts the final, so you kind of want.
Yeah, we just couldn't care less about being in it. Well, apparently, I reckon it's one of those where it's like you're not good enough, so you pretend you're not caring. But I don't know. Heading back to the second Test match starts tomorrow. You've spoken about the pitch. Is it bowl or bat first?
I'm guessing bowl first, because teams in, I think it was the last 9 of the last 10 or 8 of the last 9 tests in New Zealand, including last one, teams have won the toss and bowled. So I think that's what they will do. I'm trying to remember what those scallops do. I need to ask someone. Which is basically, I can't remember if it means it's actually like you bowl first because then you bat last on it. Because even though it's movement, it kind of moves a bit too much for you to nick it, but it's hardest and it's at its quickest. I think I might be making all of that up, but it sounds like what I'm being told.
Yeah, so, sounds pretty correct. Yeah. Well, Cam, thank you very much for coming on today. I'm looking forward to the rest of the series.
Can't wait.
Thank you
very much.
And now it's time for Guerilla.